Today on the CTV News at 5, the federal government introduces back-to-work legislation to get striking railway employees back on the job. Plus, Lethbridge Regional Police have a suspect in custody in a bank robbery. And Lucas Sutter gears up for the NHL Draft Combine.
CTV News with Jackie Scantlebury.
Good afternoon. The federal government, as expected, is bringing in legislation to force striking CP rail employees back to work. Many local picketers say they're disappointed but not surprised. Alicia Fieldberg reports.
They're throwing us under the train.
Some CP rail employees are steaming as the federal government orders to end the strike. Negotiations between the Teamsters Union and management derailed over the weekend. Many of the 160 local workers on strike say they weren't surprised legislation was tabled on Monday.
I believe that's what the railway was intending, for us to be legislated back to work.
This is the third time the Harper government has intervened in a labor dispute in the past year. Many local picketers feel this precedent doesn't give companies any incentive to negotiate.
They'll allow the government and the arbitrators to force us back to work and force the pension rules down our throat, or force their wage plans down our throat.
Labor Minister Lisa Raitt urged the government to act soon.
Canadians want responsible leadership from their parliamentary representatives. So the sooner this bill is passed, the sooner Canadians, businesses, and investors will be reassured. So I'm going to call upon my fellow members today to support this bill, to support its expedited passage, and allow our economy to recover and to keep Canadians working.
4,800 workers across the country walked off the job Wednesday after rejecting a proposal to increase work hours, cut pensions by up to 40%, and reduce retirement health benefits. Many local workers are disappointed the union and CP Rail couldn't work out an agreement.
We're not asking for more money. We want some time off, and we want what we've already had in place for 110 years.
My retirement papers are going in as soon as we get back to work. People are already going back to the work in the oil patch in Alberta because at least they have a chance of making proper money there.
The strike has shut down freight service across the country. Federal Labor Minister Lisa Raitt says that's costing the national economy $500 million a week. Alicia Fieldberg, CTV News, Lethbridge.
Raitt says the strike affects 1 million workers in the bulk shipping industry alone. Trains are expected to be back running again by Thursday. Our first look at the forecast, and Dory Rossiter, temperatures moving into the high teens and even 20 degrees by Thursday.
I know we've got a nice area of high pressure that's trying to slide into place, Jackie. Little leftover stability today and again tomorrow, and that's due to that huge low pressure center that slid across southern Alberta yesterday. It's making its way into Saskatchewan and Manitoba, but just the wraparound effect kicking some instability back into our neck of the woods. But that'll all be gone by Wednesday. I'll have all the details coming up in a couple of minutes.
Okay, thanks, Dory. Well, police have arrested a suspect in a brazen daylight bank robbery in West Lethbridge. Police say a man entered the Scotia Bank on University Drive just after 11 o'clock this morning, claiming to have a weapon and told a teller to hand over cash. The man then fled the bank in a green Mazda truck with an undisclosed amount of money. A short while later, police apprehended the man in an unlikely turn of events.
At approximately 1 o'clock this afternoon at the intersection of 7th Street and 5th Avenue South, we had downtown beat police officers on the scene, and they witnessed a collision. And at that time, a 49-year-old Lethbridge male was taken into custody in relation to that collision for impaired driving, and he's also subject to that bank robbery investigation. So he's now in custody for the bank robbery and the impaired driving, and he's going to face continued investigation. So we don't have a name at this time, but the investigation is going in that direction. We anticipate a court appearance for him tomorrow morning.
No one was injured in the robbery, and no one was seriously injured in the collision either. The 49-year-old man is expected to make his first court appearance tomorrow morning. Meanwhile, Blood Tribe police have arrested a man wanted in connection with a stabbing at a South Lethbridge neighborhood. Lethbridge Regional Police were called to the 2500 block of 18th Avenue South Sunday afternoon. Neighbors say that they heard a commotion in the alley. Then a man ran to a nearby home shouting, that his brother had been stabbed. A car with 4 people inside fled the scene. The victim, a 22-year-old man, is being treated at Chinook Regional Hospital for multiple stab wounds. Police have laid several charges against 23-year-old Monty Justin Big Throat of no fixed address. And police say this was a targeted crime, and Big Throat and the victim knew each other. Big Throat was arrested on the Blood Reserve. He's now facing charges of aggravated assault, assault with a weapon, assault causing bodily harm, as well as possession of a dangerous weapon. 21 people are facing multiple charges after a successful drug raid in Brooks and Medicine Hat. Investigators executed search warrants on 5 homes in Brooks and then 2 more in Medicine Hat. They seized about 142 grams of crack cocaine and then $6,000 as well. Street value of the drugs is around $28,000. The investigation is ongoing, and police say that further charges may be laid. School shootings at Columbine and Tabor have dramatically changed how schools and communities deal with violence and threatening behavior. Now, 13 years later, the school districts in southern Alberta have signed an agreement that outlines clear procedures for dealing with threats and school violence, as well as reducing the risk to students, staff, and others in the community. Terry Vogt reports.
The new protocol agreement has been signed by 30 groups and organizations, including school districts, police departments, and community agencies. The 60-page document is based on the work of Kevin Cameron, founder of the Canadian Centre for Threat Assessment and Trauma Response. Cameron was a crisis team leader following the 1999 school shooting in Tabor, a tragedy that was sparked by the Columbine school massacre in Colorado 8 days earlier. They were incidents that dramatically changed the landscape with respect to how schools deal with violence, threat, and risk assessment.
And we've learned a lot over the last 13 years since those events occurred. And we've learned that not responding to emerging signs of potentially violent action toward a student, a staff member, or the school itself is simply not an option.
The protocol is 60 pages long and 3 years in the making. It outlines a consistent and multidisciplinary approach to handling threats or dealing with children or youth who are showing signs of potential violence.
Each school will have available a trained clinician who understands the process of in gathering data to determine whether or not there is a real risk or simply a situation where we need to put some interventions in place.
A lot of time a child or a youth is making a plea or a cry out, and by doing these risk threat assessments, we're able to determine that they may be telling us something before we actually have an incident occur.
If you can get a head start on some of these issues, then you're going to be in a winning position and you're going to be able to protect the youth, and that's really what it's all about.
With 6 school districts, a number of independent schools, and nearly 20 agencies signing this protocol, it becomes the first in Canada to represent such a wide area. Terry Vogt, CTV News, Lethbridge.
And Tabor Police Chief Alfred says the protocol agreement isn't about enforcement or coming down with a heavy hand, but about offering a helping hand to hurting children, youth, and families in southwestern Alberta. Drivers caught speeding in Alberta could soon have their wheels taken away. Transportation Minister Rick McIver says that tells CTV News a vehicle seizure law is being considered as a way to make the province's roadways safer. Sean Amato reports.
It's a speeding crackdown that even the most intense drivers say they are ready to get behind. For Andrew Canham, speed is a thrill that needs to be controlled.
Do I speed on the streets? Not a chance. You know, it's just if you hurt somebody else, you have to live with that for the rest of your life, basically, right?
So Canham supports law changes that could see vehicles taken away from drivers who are caught doing more than 50 kilometers over the speed limit. That's now being considered by the Redford government, and in this group of car enthusiasts, Canham isn't the only one on board with the idea.
I think there should be a little bit more of a scare tactic by the government to keep people from doing things like that on the street.
Alberta's police chiefs also like the seizure law. They formally requested it 3 years ago. It didn't catch on with the government at the time, but after this, the crash that killed 7 people on Highway 63, and the negative attention that tragedy attracted, seizing the wheels of speeders is now something that's being talked about inside the legislature.
We are serious about looking at how to keep Albertans safe on Highway 63. I think there will be Albertans dead set against it and probably some cheering for it.
After a major traffic enforcement blitz earlier this month, the RCMP said too many drivers on Highway 63 and elsewhere, quote, aren't getting the message. And Andrew Canham agrees. He says speeders need to find a track or walk.
There's lots of opportunities for drivers to find the limits of their cars in a safe manner that's off the public streets.
British Columbia already has this law, and they say that serious collisions were cut in half in just 1 year after their seizure law took effect. And British Columbians will have a new statutory holiday. Starting February 11th, 2013, they will celebrate Family Day. It will be held on the second Monday in February. Several other provinces, including Alberta, of course, already celebrate a Family Day. Canadian naturalist Charlie Russell is speaking out against logging in the Castle River Valley. Russell spent 51 years studying and living amongst grizzly bears and is worried about their future. He thinks bears get a bad rap because we fear them and try to manage them, which upsets the animals. Russell says logging in special areas is an example of how we create problems by trying to control nature. Instead, he says we should learn to coexist.
We can create habitat by our understanding and acceptance of them being there. We've taken a lot of areas away that we refuse to coexist with them.
Russell spoke at the Castle Wilderness Coalition annual meeting this past weekend. On the financial front today, markets south of the border were closed for Memorial Day. Here's a look at the financial numbers.